because I'm starting to get those feelings. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to push on and deal with it right now. That's totally fine. When you have the freedom to do that, that's really good. Sometimes you're at work and you got to finish the conversation. Well, you got to be a person. Just like the intersection. You got to look left and right. You got to decide what you're going to do. And hopefully you've practiced that. Because unfortunately, a lot of us have practiced the other stuff too, which is the not looking properly and the not talking about it. That's more what I'm used to. So it's cool when I do these things like look both ways and talk about it. When I do things like talk about frustration and look at it, just look at it, because it's hard to look at, guys. Isn't that strange? Didn't I just say that all these echoes and bubbles of thoughts are happening, and I've practiced them so many times that it just kind of happens? And I fixate on it even though it's not a great feeling to keep feeling. And it's not easy to look at it and not get sucked deeper. It's like an engine. It's like your mind's eye is also a gas pedal. The car's already started when you wake up. You're up and about. But then that frustration is right there. And it's been there so long that the car is in first gear. And you find the second you look at it, you've already got your big toe on the gas. And it's revving up and it wants to go somewhere and do something. And you gotta relax for it to slow down again. And then it'll hit you again. You'll be like, bah, 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 bah. And then it'll relax. It comes in waves. This is all tough stuff to talk about. So I thank you all for challenging me with your listenership, because as difficult as these themes are to explore on my own, and as rewarding as they are to talk about, they're even harder to talk about while I'm experiencing them. And that's just what this is about. That's just what this is about. This is not a podcast about anecdotes. This is not a podcast about frustration even. Those are two parts to it. But no. What is this? Remember what this is? This is a running podcast. I'm a running podcaster. That's what I'm doing. If I'm frustrated, then a bunch of stuff starts to happen, just like that gas pedal. Each time the engine goes around and speeds up and tries to get me going somewhere, the places that frustration tries to get me to go are not helpful to podcasting. But they do tell me what I'm feeling, and they do tell me where those parts of me want to go. And that tells me about what's happening in my mind and my body. That's useful information. If I know it, and I know it because I looked at it and tried to relax and just know it's there without hitting the gas, which maybe that's a level of complexity too much. Perhaps. Maybe even for me. But you see, we're practicing running on a podcast. I noticed that frustration was right there when I wanted to do the podcast. And then something happened. The frustration made me want to podcast more than it made me want to not podcast. Because all the rest of me, all the other parts of me that weren't that little piece, well, I've been practicing all those pieces too. And a lot of those pieces, motivation, inspiration, curiosity, community. And I look inside my heart, there's a whole bunch of people in there. A bunch of versions of myself, a bunch of other people as well. I've got my versions of them. If we know similar people, you've probably got a different version of a lot of those people in your heart too. But that's a thing, that's a part of you. This community. So I want to help my community. I'm inspired and motivated to be a part of my community, even if I don't know exactly what that means. Because we're talking about hearts and mind's eyes. That's not easy. That's not easy stuff. You can't just look at it. At least, not without practice or good luck. I prefer to have both on my side, if you take me honestly, but since this is what we have, this is what we're going to use. Practice. I've practiced feeling around for these other things and echoing them as well. So sometimes I'll get 3 or 4 good, solid inspiration echoes. Make me want to jump up and click my heels together and get at it. And I won't feel it just once. I'll feel it a few times. Because I know what it's like to only feel it once. And then to go right back to the frustration. No, I want to have a conversation. I want this whole council of Justin at the table. Talking. Better that there's more talking than less. From this emotion, from that thing, from that part, from the other thing. Because you know something? When you can get all of it together, or at least most of it, but the more of the council you can assemble and move in a given direction and vote on what to do and figure it out, the better. Case in point, I'm very sweaty right now. It's been miles. I'm still frustrated, but guess what? When it came time to do something that wasn't staring at a door, and we'll talk about that, because I was almost there. But when it came time to figure out what to do, I knew that I could pull on my shoes. And I knew that I could think words to speak and maybe get a little excited about. Even if they felt a little sarcastic. Even if I annoyed myself the way that I was talking when I was thinking about how I might talk to you guys out here on the trail. Should I go? I looked at my phone and I looked at my headset. I kept thinking, I'm going to run without the headset. Then I thought, no, I'm going to run with it. I want to talk. And then it's like, no, I don't want to. But the whole council was talking. All these joyful parts were triumphant too because I had a nice breakfast in me that I made myself and cleaned up after. And cleaned up the cleanup. That part was right there too that said, hey, look at all the things that I did. How big a deal is this? Maybe I can make it a good big deal instead of a bad big deal. Or at least break even. You see? So the council met and we decided to move forward together. We're integrating all these different parts. They like to be together, but they do get pulled apart by their differences. Just like any good group of people who want to move together like a tribe or a community. But get stopped sometimes because they can't decide on 3 or 4 different options and make one option out of them and decide we're all going to pull there. That's just it. When I pulled on the headset and I looked at that hedge and I started moving, and I didn't have to start talking, but I was thinking about it. I didn't have to hit the camera button, but I hit the camera button. I started walking. Even frustration. Even that guy at the table with his sassy little stance and his annoying reedy voice and his watery red annoyed eyes that were all full of caffeine like the rest of me was. Even that part with his arms crossed, looking up at the ceiling. Even he was like, okay, yeah, we can do that. We can do that because I want to get expressed. I want my turn to talk. I don't just want to talk to myself and have all the other parts be like, oh, God, you again. No. Let's all be talking, and let's have me talk too. So in that way, I gained an extra however many % strength that was. And then I started talking, and now here we are, having done another amazing thing, which is started running and taking care of our body while talking about this thing that's not easy to talk about. And stack on that, do it in such a way everybody can listen. I don't know if everybody can keep up with me, because as fast or as slow as I'm going with my footsteps, I'm going at different speeds in the mind, because the mind is a looser field. We already talked about how the mind's eye is kind of hard to talk about as an eye. In the same way, this council of selves, that's tough too. Arms crossed frustration guy. That's different than a real person that I'm looking at a table that I'm trying to get on board because I want to do a thing. Let me know if any of you have ever been on a relay run or a track competition and you've actually had a person who was locked into it, fixated on it. They're all frustrated, and that's all that you hear out of them. And they're not bringing all the other voices to the table. And they're not getting the energy of that part of themselves on board. Now tell me how you reacted. Or any team thing, really. It doesn't have to be running. Remember, ride-alongs are not ride-alongs. Just like eyeballs and mind's eyes. And hearts and communities are not exactly as they seem. They're not exactly like the counterparts that you see. So, anytime you've ever tried to do anything challenging in a group, let me know if somebody in that group really wasn't on board. And let me know what you did. Let me know what you did. I'm proud of you just for saying something about it. Because again, in a different way, it's not easy to talk about it. As I've proven, because you can feel the emotion in my voice. You can probably feel the way that I'm talking differently. I can definitely feel that I'm running differently. I can feel, and I told you we'd get back to that, like what I'm actually feeling. Like, what does this frustration actually feel like? Since we don't have access to cross-arms counsel guy, calls himself frustration, we just have this weird thing called emotion that we kind of can feel our way around, like, yeah, it kind of feels like that. Remember earlier, we said it was kind of like anger, but a little different, a little more specific. Okay. Anger makes me want to move. Most of the time. Frustration sometimes makes me want to stop. That's different. But how about actual physical sensations? I told you my running is different. My breathing is different. I started out very slow, I remember that. And I was doing that because I was thinking fast. And that's what I'm talking about. Since it's always a conversation with all these parts all the time, my friends, it's not that easy. And since all these parts are not physical, you're not looking at a round table around you with all these emotions, with name tags, and you're not all talking, but all these things are inside, kind of like the mind's eye is to the eyeball. It's tough to identify and to really make out who's talking. Sometimes it sounds like one guy, but it's actually a chorus of those two guys over there. Some of these parts of you can throw their voice and can fool you. You think they're coming from one spot, coming from another. So here's some clear language. When frustrated, I want to breathe on the exhale more. Like that. I want to go more than I want to go. Right? And not only do I want to go, that's different than, that's a sigh. Sigh, S-I-G-H. A sigh is usually considered to be a pleasant, slow, low vocalization with a lot of breathiness that you might do if you're feeling really good. Actually, one of my housemates has a habit of it. Remember how we talked about we're practicing emotions? I don't know if she always feels this way, but one thing about her, she sighs a lot. But happy sighs. There's other kinds of sighs too. But the one that we're talking about is the happy sigh. Like the, that's nice. You'll notice her doing that a lot. Now, we've all got our own different practiced responses to things. And again, I say practiced. I've been using this word. Maybe rehearsed is better. Because practicing, you might think you always do it on purpose. But practicing is oftentimes not on purpose. But anyway, we're getting into the weeds again. What I want to do is bring this back. My breathing wants to change when frustration is the one that's talking the most. That's a simple thing to say. Yeah, let's add on to that. Other things that might point me to that part of the round table include the way that I want to speak. My consonants will be harder. My S's will be longer. I'll click my tongue more, like this. Yeah, I'll smack my lips like that. As if to just say a little more without saying anything. Because at the end of the day, these things, we can talk about using words, but they're impulses and feelings. There's a lot more going on than words. When you end up losing your words, sometimes you got a little fight left in you still. You're like, I don't have a word anymore for this. I've been talking all these words, trying to talk this way. And I want to growl more. Vocal fry is something that happens when you go low and you let your voice do this. That's vocal fry. I want to vocal fry more when I'm frustrated. So those are 3 things that we just identified. Those are 3 solid things for this floaty, weird thing we call an emotion that we can all do something with once we know we're starting to do it. Here's another one. This is going to sound weird, but frustration also makes you want to talk in a higher pitch. Closer to a scream, maybe. Maybe that's why. Maybe because screams are associated with high stress or high excitement. And it's hard not to listen to a scream when somebody's screaming. Maybe that's why. Frustration sometimes gets all high up there. You know what else frustration does? And again, other voices do this. Other emotions will do this, but it makes your words want to speed up. Oh yeah, because maybe words can't fix this door that I'm looking at. Oh man, maybe they can't. But if they did, I better load up both barrels. Because this thing is making me feel like I gotta do something. Like I gotta express something, because I gotta do something with this bubbling, warm, annoying feeling. So it makes you want to talk faster. Each talk is a bullet and you're shooting at the zombies. Well, unfortunately, again, words and bullets, mind's eye and eyeballs, these are different things. You can't just fix a door by shouting at it. But you might forget that if frustration is too loud. And the rest of you is not practiced to talk to frustration. See, integration is every part of you talks not only to you. What's a better way of saying it? Integration means that all of your parts talk to each other. It's like a party where there's nobody left out. In that situation, again, you can get a lot of work done. Look at us. Look how far we've come. All the other voices, all the other parts of me, everybody at the round table is looking at frustration. They're saying, hey, I got you, man. I hear what you're saying. I'm not going to try to shut you up. I'm not going to try to bear you down. We're not all going to shout you down. Because how often does that happen? You just throw up your hands and you say you're done with it. Little do you know that your parts are going to keep arguing with each other until more echoes of this emotion happen. Physical symptoms, okay. We had the breathing, we had the talking, we had the tone. Up and down. Vocal fry. The way that I run is different. Because right now we've been running for a while. Now I catch myself, I'm sounding a bit more like Justin that I'm used to being on the run, because you know what running does? Makes you feel good. And we talked about developing relationships with parts of ourselves like the right hip. Well, my right hip may not be 1,000% agreeing with the rest of me. But when are you going to get 100% of everybody all jumping in there? And that is a physical part that I can look at. So it's even easier to know where the right hip stands on things. Especially because I've practiced the feeling of it. Anyway, what else? What else can we do to identify when frustration's at the table, cracking his knuckles and saying hum ha hum ha. Well, thoughts get shorter. Thoughts get shorter and louder. My thoughts get shorter, they get louder, they get dumber. The words I choose in my mind aren't quite as good as they would be if other voices were a little bit more the ones in the room talking more. And my thoughts are more dismissive. My thoughts are more like you know when you get really annoyed at something and you throw your hands up and you walk away? That's very much how my frustration talks. There's a lot of whatevers. There's a lot of, yeah, forget about it. You know what my favorite one was? It's an anti-motto because I caught myself using it a lot the last couple of years, and I've been pretty good this year. I don't know, 10 months, 12 months. I've been pretty good about practicing using other words than what I'm about to say. Well, what are the words, Justin? The words are this. I'm trying to remember them. Hold on. Oh, yeah. It doesn't matter. Oh, come on, buddy. It's okay to care. It's okay for things to get me. It's okay for things to matter. It does kind of matter that I can't poop alone right now. It says a lot about the choices that I made, about where I live, what I do, how I've learned what I know, and what I don't know about how doors work, and how cats work. The reason why I tried to fix the door wasn't because this was happening, but it was because the easier, simpler things weren't working. I put a giant jar of vinegar in front of that door. You know what? Those cats are strong. Took them a minute, but they got in anyway. They pushed my vinegar jar, a gallon of vinegar. They pushed it with their heads until the door opened, and then they came right in and said, hey. And I was annoyed. It's like, God, do I need to carry around a doorstop? That might be what I do. That might work. Maybe I'll put the doorstop behind the vinegar. How many things does a guy need to do to make a door a door? Door's got one job. And he has that same job in reverse. Open. And then what's the reverse of opening? Closing. It's the same thing but backwards. You have 1.5 jobs. If that. I got to employ 2 more items that all do these other things and use them to make you into a door. God damn. See? I just cursed. I told myself I wouldn't curse, but frustration was like, remember me? I'm like, yeah. We're giving you a lot of airtime right now, bro. But there's a reason to do it. You know why? Here's the big takeaway point. You ready? You ready for this? Let's do a time check. Let's do it. 56 minutes. Okay. We're at 56 minutes. So, 33. We're coming up on the end of the second episode. There's going to be a third, even though I have to poop again. Because this isn't done. We are not done. Remember, we've got the whole crew rowing. I got all of it. Everybody's talking. My frustration's talking. Anger, the cousin, is talking. Sadness is in there like, man, God, I just want to poo, and I can't poo. How sad is that? When's it going to end? When am I going to get a happy ending? Happiness is like, don't worry, it's coming. All these parts are talking. All these parts are talking. I've got them all roped in to the sleigh. We're like Santa Claus, just dropping off little presents. Not poopy ones. We're dropping off all these presents of whatever quality I'm able to manufacture with my speech, my intentions, and my practices. And you're a part of it because you're listening. Thank you for listening. Sorry for cursing. It was a soft one, but still. We're trying to uphold a practice here. Let's get after it. There's no reason not to keep practicing. You know what a part of practicing is? being okay with the fact that you messed up a little bit. Because that's a big part of the conversation. And that's actually pointing to what I wanted to say, which was the big mic drop moment. Here it is. The reason why I decided to start talking and actually make this episode happen was because I felt that charge. I remembered how much I had practiced this emotion, how much I practiced feeling it 1,000 times when I only needed to feel it once to learn the lesson. Not all practices are good, everybody. If you practice blowing bubbles for a living, that's great. If you can make money at it, or if you love it, or if you inspire a whole community. But if you're trying to fight a dragon and you only know how to blow bubbles, and that dragon is not a dirty, gross dragon that breathes greasy water, like the kind I dumped out this morning, I don't think your bubbles are going to do it. They might help, but it would be really nice to have, some fire retardant, like a fire extinguisher, and maybe a book on dragon speak, and better yet, a friend who knows how to talk to dragons, who's big and strong and can't be burned. Then maybe you can talk the dragon down and be like, hey, let's just hang out. Come on, bro. Stop burning stuff down. Heck, that's what we're trying to do right now. So, I practiced this without knowing. I rehearsed it without knowing. I felt I was growing up, Frustration was around me. And frustration was around me 1,000 times when it could have been 900. Or 2 times when it could have been just once. How many echoes? And since it was around and it seemed really normal, I was like, okay, clearly that's what you got to do. Let's learn how to blow bubbles. Clearly all the dragons, all the problems in my life are going to require the use of this feel frustration 1,000 times when I don't need to thing. Or at least it really feels that way. And I don't have a better way. No one else has a better way. Until they do, but sometimes that way comes too late. So the pattern. Again, we're talking in complex terms, guys. It's tough to keep up. Take this in phases. I can't fully understand what I'm saying either. Maybe I will on the playback. But the big thing is that of all the things that are a part of me, that's a part of me. That's a big one. I don't want to make it too big. I don't want to make it look too big, because I got a lot of other things going on right now that are really helping me to rope that part of me in and row the boat along with the rest of me. The big thing is that I recognize how easy it is to feel it. How easy it is to fixate my mind's eye. Even if it's barely there, even if the frustration is barely there, and it's at like a 1, I'll look at it. And when I look at it, well, what does your vision do? It points at things, but it also sees other things that it's not pointed at. And if you're in a certain mood, everything you see is going to look like that thing. And you're going to start finding more and more of it. It's just a human thing. In the physical realm, it's built on this idea of like, and I'm going to speak in a very general term here. I don't know if the science backs me up. Caveman is in the bushes. Caveman finds berries that are good to eat. Caveman now looks for more berries, even though his stomach might start hurting because the berries are a little acidic. He finds more berries. Then he finds other berries that are kind of the same. So he might try them on a little bit. And if he's a smart caveman, he'll spread the berries out, mix other stuff in. Well, the caveman and the berries, that's you and me and frustration. And here's the big thing. I'm sensitive to frustration. My mind's eye's ready to find it faster than I've noticed other people will do it. And it will look at it for longer, even though it hurts to look at it. And when I can pry my mind's eyeball away from it to do other things, it takes even less next time to point right back at it. And that's real. And I'm very sensitive to that sensitivity, see? It really charges me and makes me emotional to think about how easy it is to make me really frustrated. And that's just frustration. You want to talk to me about every other emotion that I don't like to experience? Boy, some people have practiced on accident and on purpose and have been mentored in surrounding the mind's eye practices with whatever it takes to look for happy things and positive things. That can be really bad too for you. If there's rough stuff happening and you don't have the infrastructure to feel your way through it, know what's going on, and then get the team together and start pulling the sleigh, that's rough too. It's possible to take any of these things out of proportion. We're just talking about one thing. So that sensitivity that I told you about to frustration, I've got something very similar to almost every negative emotion. I feel grief very easily right now. That's very specific. I feel rage a little bit easier. I'm not going to say that that's like a really big one, but it's definitely there. Because rage is tough. Rage is tough. You could say it's an emotion. You could say it's action. I'm not worried in getting too detailed on things right now. We're just kind of trying to pick our way through the woods here with something like a good picture of what's going on. So all those things, you put them all together, makes like half of the round table in my mind full of these really muscular, really loud people always trying to take over the conversation. My mind's eye is always looking at about half of what there is to see. All the dark places. All the places I don't want to go, what I don't want to see. I know that I'm mixing metaphors right now. Tell you what, we're going to do a bonus word. Since I do this so much, and since I'm feeling really good, or at least I'm feeling really strong, even though we're talking about tough stuff. I'm feeling tough right now. I'm feeling tough enough to do another word. So we're going to do that word.